This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. On the show, you'll hear from leading Australian business owners as they share the lessons they've learned building their companies. You'll learn from their successes as well as some of the challenges they faced along the way. We also talk to experts from a range of fields who share specialised techniques you can use to improve your business. I'm your host, Savan Tuna, and I'm a director at Alexander Spencer, and I'm really passionate about helping Australian businesses succeed. Imagine this. It's your typical Friday afternoon in the office. You've got orders flooding in online, but your warehouse looks like a cyclone just ripped through it. Stock isn't where it's supposed to be, deliveries are late, and your team's running around like headless chooks trying to sort it all out. Disorganised supply chains can crush profits and customers. But what if there was a better way? Today on The Bottom Line, we're talking supply chain optimisation with Anthony Dobson, General Manager of Tropical Pines, one of Australia's biggest pineapple suppliers. Anthony will take us through the challenges the pineapple industry has faced in recent years and the innovative solutions Tropical Pines have been implementing in their operations. You'll learn how to manage relationships with retailers and distributors, leverage technology for supply chain management, and you'll gain insights on Anthony's best tips for optimizing your own supply chain. Plus, we'll find out Anthony's favourite way to enjoy a pineapple. It is his job after all. Anthony, thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line today. And for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Anthony Dobson. I'm the General Manager of Tropical Pines, which is a company that's been going since 1992. It was originally set up in central Queensland in Yeppoon by three pineapple growers that wanted to combine their packing and marketing, power and give them the ability to go to the major retailers. So that was 92. And then in the mid-noughties, they then joined with growers down in southeast Queensland. And all told now there's 15 growers in the group. We probably make up somewhere between about 40 and 45% of the total industry. And you'll find Tropical Pines or Pure Gold, which is our brand, in all the major retailers across the country, in your local fruit shop. It's probably being juiced in your local cafe. We do processing. We supply a cruise industry. Anywhere I think people have a need for a pineapple, you'll probably find a Pure Gold pine.
Well, there you go. Now, before we get into Tropical Pines, tell us a little bit about your role in the business and your background, your professional background, and sort of tell us how you got into the agribusiness and in pineapple specifically.
Well, I'm the general manager. I've been with the company now just over 2.5 years. My background in I'd say food predominantly goes back over 30 years. So I grew up in the UK, and one of the first jobs I had was working for Sainsbury's supermarkets. I worked in stores, and then I worked in the buying office. And in the late 90s, I decided I wanted to change. So I moved out into the supply side and worked for a number of different marketing companies in sales and marketing roles, really trading directly with the major retailers in the UK, of which there's obviously a number. I was approached in early 2004 from Australia to see if I was interested in a role out here that was, an Australian take on category management, slightly different to what we were doing in the UK. And then, one thing led to another. And towards the end of 2005, I ended up out here, myself, my wife, my 6-month-old daughter, and we embarked on a whole new adventure in Australia. I've had roles in really fresh produce is a big one, but also meat. I've worked for the world's largest meat processor, JBS. But I suppose each of the roles that I've been involved with have taught me something new or taken me in a different direction. I've had my first few roles in Australia were working with produce. I worked for myself for a number of years, helping Australian companies set themselves up to be able to export or import, depending what they were doing. As I say, I jumped the fence from fresh produce and joined the meat industry. I worked for Primo, which obviously most people would know is the large small goods manufacturer. And then more recently, I came back to fresh produce. So pineapple, when I joined in 2021, was a completely new product for me. I'd never traded in it or done anything with it. I wasn't even a consumer of pineapple. I think Probably the last time I ate a ring of pineapple would have been on a gammon steak in a pub in the UK, probably on a Sunday afternoon. So there's been a long period between drinks in terms of pints. So when I arrived in this business, the first thing I got an understanding for is just how different pineapple is to anything else within fresh produce that we're dealing with. And then the complexities around the product. I think the thing that's most striking for me is just the period of time between planting that top and then waiting 2 years till you've got that pineapple. Most other industries, particularly if you look at something like strawberries, they plant and they're harvesting 3 months later. Lettuce is the same. It's in the ground today. They're picking it in 2 months' time. 24 months is a long time to wait for something.
So tell me, is Hawaiian pizza's got to be your favourite pizza now?
Oh, absolutely. To me, pineapple belongs on everything. I mean, it's a very versatile product, but it's struggling. All in all, consumption is not increasing. As an industry, we grow close to 30 million pineapples a year. And if you think about the population, there's 26 million Australians. So the consumption is one and a little bit pineapples per Australian per year, which is incredibly low when you look at the penetration of something like mango, for example, or I'd say strawberries, but obviously bananas being the biggest commodity. And I think a large part of those issues come back to the fact that it's a product you've got to invest in. It's messy. You've got to cut it up. There's a large portion of the piece of fruit that's actually not edible. And I think, sometimes it just sort of scares people a bit. They're worried about how much of the skin or the flesh they're cutting away. Are they getting the value for it? So it's not like just picking up a banana and peeling it and eating it. There's very little decision making in that. Same with the mango. You cut it, you chop the sides off, you skip the flesh out. It's very simple. So we're in a challenging space.
And just so our listeners can get an understanding, Tropical Pines, the company you work for, is purely a pineapple growing business that distributes around Australia and the world. Because you mentioned you partnered with other growers. So are you only pineapple growers, or tell us a little bit about Tropical Pines in that world in terms of what it does? Does it do other things other than pineapples?
No, Tropical Pines is purely a packer and marketer of pineapples. So originally when the company started, the original shareholders were growers. Obviously they've now retired out, but obviously their second and third generation are still in farming. There's 15 growers supply the company, but the Tropical Pines itself doesn't actually grow anything. The growers do all the hard work. We do the putting it in a box and trying to get everybody to buy it.
So tell us, what are the challenges that you've seen in the last 2 to 3 years that you're working on at the moment that you see some traction, you can see some stuff happening and changes coming through to the market? What are some of the things you're working on?
The biggest challenge for us, as I was saying earlier, is just the consumption. It's not really growing. So where we're not getting an increase in consumption, there's a lot of pressure around pricing. So a lot of wholesalers or retailers will use price promotion as a way of generating interest and theatre around the product. And the issue, we're no different to any other business coming out of COVID. Costs have gone up significantly. For our growers, cost of production has probably increased over 30%. And the challenge for us is to get the value into the pineapple and back to the growers. The challenge we've got is because people are not necessarily buying whole pineapples, we're trying to evolve ourselves into a space where we can appeal to younger consumers. So currently our consumers would be, I'd say, north of 30 and mainly female, because they're responsible for doing the weekly shop, as it seems from the data that we pick up. But the problem is we're not at the moment in a space where we are exciting to the younger generations when I talk about the millennials. So coffee's a good one. I always love coffee as an analogy. How much money people spend on coffee,
Yeah.
They'll go on the way to work in the morning, you'll easily spend $5 to go and get your coffee and it's your morning hit. It's the same value of a pineapple, but I don't have people picking up a pine. The reason being is my pineapple's not ready to eat. Well, it's ready to eat, but it's not in a format where you can just tuck straight into it. And that's sort of the space that we're looking to get into, which is the value add, is to make the product that we've got more accessible to people. So when I joined the business, that was sort of the first thing that was really stark to me. So I made an application to the Queensland government through their QReader, which is basically investment into regional areas. So being in Beerwah, we're north of Brisbane, we're in one of those regional development areas. So we applied for a grant to build a drying and juicing plant. So we were very lucky to be given a $200,000 grant, and that was fantastic. We were about to move forward with the process, and Mother Nature caught up with us, and we had the most horrendous natural flowering event at the back end of 2022 and into 2023. So we had to sort of hold off with our development of our plant. To explain what happens with natural flowering, so the way pineapple works is we plant them in blocks, or acre blocks or hectare blocks of probably upwards of, in a hectare is about 60,000 plants. So the grower plants these out all the way around the farm, and then we go out. Once the plant has been allowed to grow out to about 12 to 14 months, it's of a size where it'll be big enough to sustain a flower and a fruit. We go out and we spray it with liquid ethylene. And what it does is it stresses the plant. The plant thinks it's going to die, so it puts all its energy into setting a flower because it wants to leave an offspring. It's like a human thing.
How cool is that?
So by doing that, what we can do is effectively every plant in that block will set flower at the same time. And then from a harvesting perspective, we can then go in and harvest a field of pineapples. It's the most cost-effective way of doing it. And it's not horrible. It's just us. We're basically taking the position of nature and tricking the plant. What happens in a natural flowering event is nature does it for us. And the problem is we'll have plants that just gone in the ground, or might be 4 months old or 6 or 8, and they all set at the same time. But they'll produce fruit of different sizing. So we had lots of plants that will not sustain a flower and a piece of fruit, and it happened across the entire crop. And it was a product of the weather. So pineapple's a tropical fruit. It likes the sunshine, and there's too much cloud and too much wet weather, it stresses. So it naturally stresses and it sets itself. So I suppose if I put it in the simplistic terms possible, we realised as a business that we had this issue in probably the September of 2022. By all our calculations, it was going to peak in about January, February 2023. So if our business has 12 million pineapples across the course of the year, I ended up with 6 million pineapples initiating, and all that fruit came off in the first 3 months of the year. And we were about to actually able to harvest and commercially use about half of that. The remaining ones that hadn't initiated, 6 million, we had that for the remainder of the year. So we went from this absolute feast to like a famine in a very quick, it was almost like, I think from memory, it would have been about 6 weeks. So all the way out and then took down. And then we've been short ever since, because it's a 2-year growing cycle. We're now trying to catch up with ourselves. So the drying and juicing is going ahead. We're in the process of building it at the moment, but we slowed it down because we were going to spend money and not be able to realise a return on the investment because we have to get through this natural flowering issue.
Awesome. Now, I want to go into an area that you would be an absolute expert in, which is really optimizing the supply chain process. So my question's around, how does Tropical Pines approach that optimization of supply chain process just to ensure that it's efficient, it's cost effective? How do you manage all these things that you need to ensure that things don't blow out? You talked about the issues that you have with the fruit, which obviously some of the things are out of your control. But how do you manage all of the supply chain process internally?
Look, to be honest, I have an incredibly good management team below me that take responsibility for each area of the business. So I have somebody that specifically focuses on we call it grower liaison and production forecasting. So one of the biggest issues we have, as you rightly said, I don't control the weather. I'd love to. It'd be great to have. But for agriculture, it's probably the greatest threat to us because you just don't know what's going to happen. And we've seen it where floods come out of nowhere and they destroy crops and all those sort of things, but we got to face into it. So I have one team member that's constantly we're looking at a long range forecast, we're looking at a short range forecast, we're even adjusting sort of week in, week out, because it also depends for us when the fruit's ripe. I have other members of my team that are looking after the efficiency through our pack sheds. So we're constantly looking. So every day we're analysing the throughput. We're looking at our staffing. We're looking at how efficient they are. So I have 2 sheds, one here in Beerwah and another one in Yeppoon, in central Queensland. Slightly different sizes, and the equipment inside is slightly different. So my Yeppoon shed is newer and therefore slightly more efficient than my Beerwah shed. So we set them performance targets for both sites, and the shed managers are responsible for making sure they stay on top of that. Or, it's the age, I think we don't want to be overstaffed with too many people, but obviously we don't want not enough, so we're not maximising our efficiency. And then we're constantly, I suppose, with my finance manager and myself, we're then constantly looking at other issues within the supply chain and how we rectify that. So logistics for us, for example, we go all across the country. We do that in conjunction with a large transport company that takes care of all of that for us. We have other issues. So with the product that we grow, we can get a problem with stem end mold, which is a rejectable issue for the major retailers. So we've been working very heavily in that supply area, looking at the advantages of using analyte water to actually try and eradicate that issue. We've done that in conjunction with the Queensland government. So the QDAF team have been working on this mold prevention for us now for about 24 months. Because it takes a while, but we're getting to a point now where I think we have almost fixed it and it should help improve our product. But, one of the issues for us is once the fruit goes from here and disappears into the supply chain, we lose absolute control. But we've got ultimate responsibility for it. So there's lots of other people in the chain that are making decisions that actually could be detrimental to my product, but it all sort of feeds back this way. So where possible, we're trying to work in with all those links in the chain to try and improve. We've been temperature monitoring to see what happens with the product. Is it getting cross-docked somewhere and left in the sun? Is it, at the end of the day, I want to try and ensure that my customers have the least amount of issues with my product, and the consumers at the end of the day have confidence in the product that they're going and picking up, because if they've got confidence in it, they'll repeat purchase. If we give them a bad experience, they won't come back into it. So the business is, I don't take a position of change for the sake of change, but we're looking at all the areas within the business where they're causing us slight issues. We want to hone in and identify those and improve those.
What about technology? How does technology play a role in that supply chain? Is it really high end at the moment? Is it great technology, or is it still old school? And how has technology played a role in getting the fruit to the consumers through that supply chain?
I have to be honest, I think with fresh produce, we tend to sort of sit back behind everyone else, but technology for me is a big part. So one of the first projects I did here was I've integrated an agronomy application that allows us to go out and map all of the farms. It helps the growers with husbandry. So it keeps a record of all their blocks. It keeps a record of all their spray diaries, all those sorts of things. That was the initial phase. But really, I suppose in the last 6 months, the most exciting stuff is happening, whereas we're introducing drone technology. So we can actually take heat images of the different blocks or different farms. In fact, if I'd had this technology, I'd say probably 12 months ago, we would have been able to see the natural flowering event happening ahead of anybody else realising it was happening on the ground. The technology is good. So we're bringing it in because it will give us an opportunity with the growers to get a better and closer understanding of the forecast, and also preempt issues or changes within the plants that you're going to see from the air over a wide area, but you're not actually necessarily going to see from on the ground. So we're really quite excited. As far as I know, we're the only company in the pineapple industry that's using it, and the technologies, we're doing it in conjunction with our agronomy services company in Adelaide, but the technology itself comes out of the United States. But we had the drone boffins up 3-4 weeks ago. They were super excited. Production manager was like, oh my, this just makes my job so much easier.
Yeah, seeing the bird's eye view of it all, that would definitely be a little secret, little source of growing pineapples. Let's talk about a little bit around branding. I feel like I do go to the supermarket, share the load of doing the shopping. I feel like when I pick fruit, though, I don't generally go, oh, there's a box of pineapples, let me check which brand it is. I just feel like pineapple's a pineapple and apple's an apple. Probably an apple's the only thing you can go, you look at an apple and you go, okay, there's, Granny Smith's versus, Royal Gala or whatever it is, and they're different apples. But with pineapple, is there a branding element? Obviously, Pure Gold pineapples, you've got that brand. Talk to me about how branding and marketing plays a role in growing and selling pineapples and just that whole world of fruit and branding.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with apples. So people shop at the apple category by variety, whether it's a Granny Smith or a Red Delicious or whatever. There's a specific. I think the same can be said of mangoes as well. It's either a Cape Kensington Pride or a R2E or Honey Gold. With pineapples, there are several varieties grown. From the perspective of our company, we're packing a marketing hybrid. So we pack a variety called 7350, which was developed in Hawaii in the 80s and was brought in and propagated in Australia in the 90s. And it saw that first evolution away from what was typically a smooth cayenne, which is the original canning variety. It's a good cayenne, can taste good, but at times a bad cayenne can be really acidic and almost like the enamel's being removed from your teeth kind of thing. So the hybrids are a sweet. They're gold inside and they're naturally low acid. So that's where the pure gold development came from, because we were marketing a gold variety. It's a challenge for us because I'm not sure how strong our branding is from a consumer perspective, and that's a piece of work that we'll be doing in conjunction with the Queensland government again and their food sciences team at Cooper's Plains, because we want to get into the head of the consumer and understand what are the drivers. At this stage, I don't think we really know. The problem with pineapple as well is we don't get a huge amount of space, retail space, because of what it is. It's in there because of range and choice, but we do tend to get squeezed up a little bit. The other challenge as well is a lot of our fruit, although it's ripe and ready to eat, has a green shell. And obviously every piece of marketing, and I'm sitting here looking at a picture of the pure gold on the wall, shows everybody a fully yellow, fully gold pineapple. So there's a possibility there that we're confusing the consumer. I think one of the things that worries me, and we have a food trailer that I decided would be a good way to actually engage with consumers directly. So not so my customers, my retailers, but actually the consumer and understand what they're doing. And a lot of people think of pineapples like a mango. You need to take it home and let it ripen. I can tell you what will happen is it will just rot. It's actually ready to go. And that's a huge challenge for us in our marketing and our branding, to actually get that message across of take it home. As soon as you get home from the shops, chop that thing up, get it in the fridge, and it's good to go. If you leave it on the bench top, it will just get older and older and progressively worse. And that leads me back into the changing with consumers. I've got two daughters, 16 and 18. There's that zero effort into sort of anything that's not immediately rewarding to them. So obviously I take a fair amount of pineapples home. If my wife and I cut it up and put it in the fridge, it's gone like that. If it just sits in the fruit bowl, it just sits in the fruit bowl. It doesn't move. So then I'm looking at it and saying, well, I need to change what we're doing, because there's two people here that'll eat it if it's in the fridge, but they're not going to put any effort in. So this is the space we've got to get into.
I think education's going to be the key. I do like my pineapples, but yeah, it's not a fruit that I think the effort is a big part of it. It's a little bit messy and all the rest of it, but so is the mango. I feel like education, the benefits of pineapple, and talking to parents would be a big part. I've got two girls myself, much younger than yours. They're 12 and 8. And, we always have to pack some kind of fruit in their lunch. And apples are easy, pears are easy, but strawberries are the easiest to pack because they're little. You can leave the stem on, they generally last, and it goes really well. They're kind of sweet but tangy at the same time. Pineapples are the best fruit. They're sweet, they can be tangy, but we just don't go there. I feel like if the education around it, the benefits of eating the fruit and talking to the consumer towards maybe parents, I think you'll find if you get it into the lunch boxes, that'll help. And yeah, it's just, I think I'm just reflecting back when pork, do you remember the pork ads, put a pork on your fork ads, where they were just trying to promote people to eat pork, because generally people think pork is really fatty, but pork is actually quite a lean meat. It's not a fatty meat, and educating. So I hope this inspires people, this episode, to go out and find a pineapple. And I actually didn't know you had to cut it straight away. So I'm guilty of the pineapple sitting in the fruit bowl because it actually looks the best. It's the best looking fruit in the bowl. It's a centerpiece and it sits there looking pretty when it should be eaten. So I've learned something today. So yeah, I think education is going to be a big part.
It keeps just fine in the fridge once you've got it. It's a tropical fruit. It's the same with the mango. Don't put it in the fridge in its skin because it will go black inside. Cut it up, put it in the fridge. It's absolutely fine. But what I was going to say is that's talking about the lunchbox fillers. That's the reason we're heading in the direction of the dried pineapple, because we can produce a product that's All we do, we put it through a process over 24 hours where we slowly draw the moisture out of it, and then you're left with a shelf-stable product that has a 2-year shelf life and can be easily put into lunch boxes.
And that's a great product. Do you lose any of the benefits of the fruit, the vitamins and minerals?
Absolutely not. All it does is it intensifies the flavour because you're taking out the moisture that helps dilute that sugar. You're just intensifying the product itself. The other big area we're heading into is producing a cold press juice, which tastes phenomenal and very different to anything else out there at the moment because most of the juice is derived from smooth cayenne. Obviously, we're growing 7350. So, yeah, I have to be honest, I'm quite buoyed and I'm quite excited about what the next 12 to 18 months holds for us. But I think as an industry, we've just got to realise that we have got to evolve with the changing times. Our challenges are no different to any other food or agri-business company. You've got to keep changing. Your consumers are moving through. The younger ones are coming in. They want something different. I think you've just got to appreciate that.
And just on the last part with the supply chain part, because it's a big part of what you do. You generally, a lot of businesses deal with this, but it's not a really big core part of it. What advice do you have for business owners looking to optimize their own supply chain?
Oh, I think you just got to take a holistic approach to the whole thing and then just look at the chunks, look at the quick fixes first and then move on to the more challenging ones. Our supply chain is fairly long. We've got product all the way to Perth. One of the things that annoyed me at the start was the issue with stem end mold. We haven't quite got to solving on that, but that was the first one we needed to hone into. But also with our chain, we're looking at the opportunities to evolve into export markets as well. And that's where the juice and the dry comes in. The issue that we're going to face if you look at a supply chain globally is we're effectively producing a product up against other countries like the Philippines and Costa Rica, whose cost of production is significantly cheaper than ours. At the moment, Australia only has 3 protocol markets that we can send pineapple to. New Zealand is one. Well, they've been buying from Costa Rica forever. Japan, that's right next to the Philippines. So we're already at a disadvantage in freight. And Korea, again, almost right next to the Philippines. So we look at our product mix and go, right, well, if we're doing a dry product or we're doing a juice product, at least we've got the opportunity to potentially compete on a similar level. And that's really as a business that we're looking to head. I can't see an opportunity at this stage for us to export whole pineapple, but I do see an opportunity to export pineapple products.
And now what you answered my export question. My last question, I've got 2 more questions for you, Anthony. My next one is around the supermarkets. A lot of what you produce and sell goes into Coles and Woolies. Tell me how you manage that relationship, because there's been some recent news around how Coles and Woolies work with farmers. What's your experience for being with them and obviously being a customer? How have you managed that relationship? And what advice do you have to growers or small business that are dealing with the larger supermarket chains?
I think from our perspective, our relationship has always been good. Our lines of communication are open and honest. The retailers are not my entire business, so we're very careful in our business to ensure that we're covering all the areas. So as I mentioned earlier, we're in wholesale markets, we're in with all the major retailers, or if we're not in with them directly, it'll be an indirect relationship through our wholesale customers. We're doing food service, we're doing processing, we're doing juicing, we're also doing it ourselves. So I think my advice to those businesses out there is don't put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, the retailers are an important part of our business, but let me reiterate, they are a part of our overall business. Other people have a different view on it, but I think my view is my relationship is good. We're very happy with it, and we'll continue for the foreseeable.
And Anthony, as the GM of Australia's favourite pineapples, what's your personal favourite way to enjoy a pineapple?
To be honest, I like the juice. I think the 7350 juice is unique. I've been out on our food trailer. We've been to the Good Food and Wine Show in Brisbane for the last 2 years. First year I was there, I had this all singing, all dancing machine that basically peels and cores your pineapple and drops it into a cup, which was fantastic. We're still trying to convince retailers to take that on and drive consumption. It works very well in Europe. But the following year we had the trailer where we were doing a smoothie and a juice. And I have to be honest, the juice, when it's ice cold, almost like a slush, is just second to none. The other one is, I'd say the dry pineapple was really quite intense. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I have to say my favorite way of eating a pineapple is on a pizza. I'll tell you a very funny story. It's funny as, right? So me and my wife, we've been together for, I'm going to say now about 17, 18 years. And we eat pizza quite a bit, as much as the next person. And we'd order always things like, capricciosa or, a vegetarian or a Mexican or whatever it is, right? And we would never order a Hawaiian. And one day my wife was out with the girls and I'm like, oh, thank God she's gone. I'm going to have a pizza. She hates Hawaiian pizza. She doesn't like pineapples on a pizza. And I ordered this, wherever it was, my favorite shop, extra pineapples, and I'm eating and I ordered a lot. So there was leftovers. She came home from dinner, or it was the next morning. She goes, oh, you ordered pizza last night? I said, yeah. She goes, you ordered a Hawaiian? I said, yeah, it's my favorite pizza, but I never like ordering it because you don't like it. She goes, oh, I thought you didn't like the pineapples. It's actually my favorite pizza. So like 17 years, the two of us would avoid ordering the Hawaiian because we thought that we didn't like it. So now we're going to a really cool Italian pizza place not far from where we're living, and they're an Italian pizza place, but they do have Hawaiian on the menu. And we'll look at each other like, Hawaiian? Yep. So for those that don't know, I love a pineapple on a pizza. Don't shoot me if you're Italian. But Anthony, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our listeners. You have inspired me to get some pizza this weekend and to cut up some fruit when I go to the shops next and put it into my daughter's lunch boxes. So thank you again for just sharing the journey, because agribusiness is a pivotal part of the success of Australian economy and Australian businesses. We do need to support our local growers, and being a local grower, your success is important to the rest of the country. And I want to say thank you for all the hard work. Thank you for being on the show.
No worries. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. This podcast was produced by accountancy firm Alexander Spencer. At Alexander Spencer, we've been helping business owners realise their goals since 1952. And we play a pivotal role in developing, implementing, and supervising the business goals and strategies of our clients. To find out how we can help your business succeed, head to our website, alexanderspencer.com.au. To make sure you don't miss an episode of The Bottom Line, be sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Savan Tuna, and we'll be back next episode with more tips to help you transform your business. And that's The Bottom Line.